Hi guys, and welcome to another video. This video is part 2 of my PASTEL Fox tutorial. In part 1 I showed you how I created the pan pastel background, and this video will be about how I drew the actual fox itself using both pastel pencils and pan pastels. I'm sorry that part 2 was posted ages after part 1, but I was waiting for a new laptop to arrive. Video editing on my old laptop took forever and it would keep crashing, and I would have to sometimes start all over again, which was frustrating to say the least. Anyway, I started off with the fox's eyes and face. When drawing animals, I always start off with the eyes as it gives the animal character and makes the drawing come alive straight away. Also, if I make a mistake with the eyes and they don't look great, then I find that the whole animal portrait doesn't look as good because the eyes really make or break a drawing, I find. So I always like to make sure I have the eyes done first. I found these eyes quite difficult to do because they were so tiny. It wouldn't have been so fiddly using coloured pencils because you can get the pencils to a much finer point, but using pastel pencils it was quite difficult to get in any details. After outlining the eyes in black, I had to go back in with the orange colours because it was difficult to get in very precise details. Usually when working with pastels I like to work a bit larger, but I decided to do a smaller scale piece to change it up a little bit and challenge myself. Here I'm using a mixture of Caran d'Ache pastel pencils, Faber-Castell Pip pastels and Stabilo Carbothellos. I like to use a mixture of different brands of pastel pencils as they each have a slightly different softness. For example, the Faber-Castell Pip pastels are quite hard, so they're better for finer details. The Caran d'Ache ones are quite soft, so they're good for larger areas, or if you want a smoother look as they blend together much more easily. The Stabilo Carbothello pastel pencils I'd say are in the middle of the other two. They are quite soft, but you can get quite a lot of fine detail in with them. So if you're buying pastel pencils for the first time, I would recommend the Stabilo Carbothellos as they are good all-rounder pastel pencils and they're also the cheapest. The Caran d'Ache pastel pencils are by far the most expensive, but they're great if you want to use them for commissioned artwork or if you're selling your original artwork because their light-fast ratings are amazing. The light-fast rating is a scale of how long your artwork will last when exposed to light. If you're selling your artwork, you don't want to use supplies with a low light-fast rating, otherwise the colours will fade quite quickly if someone displays the art on a wall or something. I then moved on to the fur on the face after I was happy with the eyes and the nose. The nose was also extremely difficult to get any detail in because it was so tiny. Because this piece is so small, the pencil strokes I'm using are really short, otherwise it would look like the fox has really long fur. I was using lots of different shades of orange and brown for the fur strokes to add depth and dimension to the fur. If you look at fur, it isn't just one colour. It has so many different tones within it, so it's good to pick out a few of the tones to use within your drawing to make it look more realistic. After adding a layer of pastel, I like to blend it out using a blending stump and then add the final details and fur strokes on top. This just prevents any of the paper underneath showing up so that the colour is more saturated. Usually the base layer is a bit darker and then I like to add the lighter fur tones on top. With pastels you can add lighter colours on top of darker colours, which is great. With coloured pencils you can't do this, which is one thing that I dislike about using coloured pencils. For the body, I went in first of all with a white pastel pencil, just laying down some strokes so I knew which direction the fur should go in. It's always very important to study the direction the fur goes in, as it can make the animal look more realistic and it can add movement to your piece of artwork. Since white fur is never just white, I added some greys to add shadow and depth to the fur. I then went back over with the white pastel pencil to lighten certain parts back up again. The great thing about pastels is that you can keep layering different colours over the top and they continue to show up until the tooth of the paper is filled up. I'm using pastel matte paper here, which has a soft but sanded texture so that there's a good amount of tooth, so the pastels grip to the paper really well and you can continue to add more and more layers. You should really use your harder pastels first before you use the softer pastels because softer pastels fill up the tooth of the paper a lot quicker. You don't have to follow this rule, but if you are struggling to add more layers after a certain point, try using your harder pastels before you start adding any of your softer ones and you should find it a little bit easier. As you can see here, when I added the black whiskers to the fox's face, the black pastel went down with ease. If you had filled the tooth of the paper up before adding the whiskers, then the pastel wouldn't grip to the paper very well and the whiskers wouldn't show up as much, or they might appear patchy. When it came to the main bit of the body, I did start to use the pastel pencils as a base, but it was taking me a very long time and I was getting a bit frustrated with it. That's when I decided to go in with the pan pastels as a base for the body, which sped up my drawing process so much. It would have taken me at least 3 times as long if I'd continued to use the pastel pencils as a base. In part 1 of this video, I spoke about the pan pastels in a bit more detail, so feel free to watch part 1 if you haven't already. I'll put a link to it in the description below. I just used one of the soft tools to add some of the bright orange colour to the main bit of the body, and then I used a small amount of a deeper reddy toned colour for the top part of the body, as that is where a shadow was in my reference photo. I decided to use the brighter orange within the body, because in my reference photo that was where the light was hitting the fox. The face and the main part of the body were the brightest parts of the fox. One thing I've been trying to work on recently is making sure I get the lighting reflecting off the correct parts of the drawing. For example, sometimes the sun is on one side of the animal, so obviously that side will appear brighter, and the other side will have more shadows and darker tones. It just adds another sense of realism to the artwork, and it can make a huge difference. I recently drew a lion using pastel pencils, and it had the lion almost looking up into the light, so it was a challenge to get the lighting and shadows correct within that piece. I'll link my Instagram account below where you'll be able to see that lion piece if you wanted to check it out. After adding the pan pastel, I just went in with the pastel pencils, doing loads of first strokes on top. As you can see in this video clip, it doesn't take half as long once you've used the pan pastel as a base. A few strokes of pastel pencil on top and it's pretty much done. If you're a lover of pastel pencils, I highly recommend picking up a few pan pastels to speed up larger areas of your drawings, as it makes a huge difference. It's also quite cost effective because pan pastels can cover more surface area than a pastel pencil or a soft pastel stick can. I'll link all the pastels and things that I've used in this video in the description below. Recently, I've been working on a new website. I'll put a link to it in the description. I'd be so grateful if you'd check it out and give me some feedback, as this is the first website I've made and it's still a work in progress. I have a shop on my website as well where you can buy any of my art prints or merchandise too, so feel free to have a browse. I really hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please click the like button and subscribe to my channel so you won't miss out on any future videos. Thanks for watching. Bye guys!